Hi there, Chris from Stone Age Gamer here, and today we're going to talk about Xeno Crisis. This is a new game that is available for lots of retro platforms that we carry here at StoneAgeGamer.com. So right now we're going to take a closer look at a handful of different versions. This is the Genesis version, but there's a lot more to look at, and they're all pretty interesting, so here we go.
Okay, so we're going to start with the Dreamcast version. This is the Dreamcast version of Xeno Crisis right here from Bitmap Bureau, and there you got this angry dude and this angry lady on the front there. They look pretty good. It's nice artwork. I like that. You got a couple of screenshots on the back, some basic information. What I thought would be really fun to do, because one of my favorite things about new games for old platforms is how they try to emulate what the original trade dress was. So let's compare this one directly to a Dreamcast game. This is Toy Commander for Dreamcast, and as you can see, this is based on the earlier White series Dreamcast games. You've got the orange triangle in the right place. You got the Bitmap Bureau logo right where the Sega logo was. You got the bitmap thing here and the Sega Dreamcast written here. Looks this really clever little logo business there. The spine, again, lines up pretty right on. The Sega information there and the bitmap information is all in the same place. You've even got these little logos on the back for like VMU and how many players. They all kind of match the style. They did a really excellent job of making this seem like a fully realized old school Dreamcast game. Great job on Dreamcast, and that's the Dreamcast version of Xeno Crisis. Next, let's have a look at the GameCube version. Yes, Xeno Crisis is available on GameCube. So we've got the Bitmap Bureau business on top here, the little swoosh. This is the basics of what it looks like, some screenshots on the back. The same cover art. It's a little oddly zoomed in. I feel like the text on Xeno Crisis is a little close to the edge here. But other than that, it's pretty snazzy looking, so let's see how it stacks up to an original. Here's Metroid Prime. So you can see your Bitmap Bureau up there at the top is real similar to the GameCube swoosh there. We've got no ESRB ratings or anything like that on the front. How about the spine? You've got the black. I guess since this is written in white, it's not really going to see that white stripe there, but the sizing is spot on, so you gotta love that when there's a good-looking spine. Then we look on the back here. We've got this little guy here instead of the Nintendo seal of quality, which is pretty nice. You got your important thing there. Bitmap Bureau is in the same place. The warnings and the barcode all in the same place. These little guys up here for memory card and controllers. That's all pretty spot on. Good. You know, another solid work there. So that's Xeno Crisis on the GameCube. This is one that I'm really interested in. This is the Game Boy Advance flavored version of Xeno Crisis. I think the cover really looks great in the Game Boy Advance trade dress here. Trade dress, is that the right word? Either way, this one I'm really interested in because I know the Game Boy Advance is a very differently powered system than a lot of these other ones that we're looking at. So I'm curious how this game runs on GBA as opposed to, say, something like Dreamcast or even Sega Genesis. So this is a pretty nice looking box. Let's give it a comparison shot here to, here's Castlevania. And you can see that the Bitmap Bureau here is really doing an excellent job of emulating the font and the style and the color for Game Boy in Advance. New from as opposed to only for, but that little thingy's there in the corner. You've got the this info down here in the this corner is looking good. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, look at that. That lines up beautifully. Look at that. That looks spot on. The top looks great. The spines they just look completely legit. So you love to see that. Again, you got this logo here instead of the seal of quality is lining up great. Only for Game Boy Advance right up there. Not compatible with other systems. This is another really good job. They did the attention to the detail on these has been very impressive thus far. Now let's see what's next. Okay, here's the Genesis version that was in the intro that we were looking at here. So this looks like it's modeled after the old Grid Genesis games. Now there was a bunch of different flavors of these Grid Genesis games. So I grabbed Space Harrier 2 over here as a point of comparison. And you can see it's pretty spot on. The grid itself, the squares are about the right size. The Bitmap Bureau logo is right there and exactly where it's supposed to be. It seems like it's lining up with this flavor quite well. There were a couple of different versions of the Genesis games that had like the Genesis bit down here is either smaller or bigger, but there's a whole bunch of them. I think the most of them were like this size. So they did a really great job of nailing that there. Again, the player count looks right on. The 16-bit cartridge is almost the identical font. The barcode's in the right place. This all looks great. And what else is fun? This one's not shrink wrapped, so I'm going to go ahead and crack this one open. And you can see that it looks really quite nice. The cartridge itself has let's see how it stacks up to my Space Harrier 2 cartridge. Yeah, looks pretty good, other than facing a different direction. Instruction manual is doesn't have the grid on the instruction manual, but that's fine. It's just the instruction manual. But I noticed something else earlier, which is pretty cool, and I should have grabbed the different Genesis game off the shelf. But I was looking at this instruction manual, and I thought, what's peeking through there? What's peeking through there is that this is a reversible cover, and look, it's got the red. So I love this. This version of Genesis games, the red stripe Genesis games, like the 32X games had the yellow stripe, and the Sega CD games had the blue stripe. I always loved this look, and really Xeno Crisis looks pretty rad like that. I like the way this all comes together. So hooray for reversible covers! That is fantastic. Yeah, 16-bit Gen. That's gonna line up just like the regular Genesis games would. So that looks great. All right, that's Xeno Crisis on Genesis. And if there's a Genesis version, you better believe there's a Super Nintendo version. Here is Xeno Crisis on Super NES. I do like that you can see so much more of the artwork here on the horizontal imagery, right? Because if you're looking at the Genesis one, it kind of cuts off a lot of this really good-looking artwork. So this is pretty cool that you can see more of it on here. I want to go back to that Game Boy Advance one. No, the Game Boy Advance one was also pretty close up. So this is the first version we're actually seeing more of the artwork on, and it's kind of great. This is a pretty nice looking box. You know, again, you get your screenshots over the back here, and everything looks like it lines up. So let's take a look here. I grabbed. I noticed that this looked like it was designed to mimic the third-party stuff. This Saturday Night Slam Masters here. So we're close on the front, right? You got Bitmap Bureau up here instead of the Nintendo logo, but then you don't have anything here. Bitmap Bureau is not italicized like the Super Nintendo logo is, but I have to assume there's some kind of specific reason for that. But again, you got your seal of quality going right over there. The yellow dots are all lining up perfectly. You got this cool little Bitmap logo dude here instead of the Super Famicom logo there. The red bar across the top is in exactly the right spot. But this was the part that I noticed that really made me happy is that, well, I guess made me happy is the wrong word, because this has always driven me nuts. On the bottom of the spine, the Capcom logo is upside down, and a bunch of third parties did that, but you better believe Bitmap Bureau did the same thing, but they've got it in the right, all the font is facing the right direction. Which Super Nintendo games were pretty wild with that sometimes. There were a lot of games where the fonts on different sides of the boxes don't actually line up, which is hilarious and really annoying for people who like to line up their games and have them look all uniform, like crazy people like me. But yeah, this is a really nice looking box. I think the Super Nintendo one might be my favorite looking box so far. This is a really nice looking setup. Good job. And yes, this game was also put on Nintendo 64. So here is the N64 version of Xeno Crisis. Again, you're seeing a bunch of the artwork on the side there. I think it's the same amount, right? It's just a little bit more zoomed in. Now you're actually seeing more of the vertical. So I think the N64 one is the one where you're getting the most artwork on. But so N64 games famously had this like multicolored thing going on. Every side of the box is a different color. And it looks like it is put together really nicely. So let's grab something for comparison. One of my very favorite N64 games, the new Tetris, which I'm sure is very similar to Xeno Crisis in many ways. Kidding. So the one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is that the red is a bit darker here. Like this is more of a maroon than a bright red. But the rest of the colors, like, yeah, see, this is a little bit more orange. This is more yellow. The red on the side doesn't look quite as obvious. The blue is, look at that. That's pretty spot on. And the green is also pretty spot on. And everything else is in the right position. You know, you've got your Bitmap Bureau in a square instead of the N64. Your how many controllers and stuff. Although I guess look at the shape of the controller is slightly different. That's interesting. Again, I have to assume that was very intentional. And there's your screenshots and stuff on the back. Your seal of quality's in the right place. Again, I can't stress enough, the attention to detail on these boxes is really flippin' cool. So there you go. I got one more though. Got one more. All right, so I don't actually own any Neo Geo games myself, so we're just gonna have to look at this one solo. But this is the Neo Geo AES version of Xeno Crisis, and it's really cool. I am always taken aback by how enormous Neo Geo games are. I've always been fascinated by these things, but here's a look at the outside of the case. Geez, these things are so big, my camera's a little too close. And here's the back of it, and we're going to crack this thing open because it's not shrink wrapped or anything. So just open this up, and if you've never seen Neo Geo games before, these are really quite something. This is nice. The manual comes in a nice little bag like that, fits right in there. And then you've got the cartridge, which again, I can never get over how flippin' huge these things are. This cartridge is just massive. I always wanted a Neo Geo as a kid, but they're pricey. And I know Neo Geo collectors can be very specific about the kinds of games that they get and what they look like. And as far as I can tell, this is a pretty spot-on looking cartridge. This looks really nice. Like I said, I don't have any actual Neo Geo games to compare it to here at my little studio here, but this is really cool. And yeah, Xeno Crisis is available on Neo Geo. Isn't that something? So I guess the next thing that we need to do is see what this game actually plays like. So I'm going to grab a couple of different versions of the game, and we're going to take a look at what Xeno Crisis actually is.
Okay, here we are with the Sega Genesis version of Xeno Crisis running in my Genesis 2 right over there. We're going to pick, let's pick English, and this is what the game looks like on Sega Genesis. We've got some pretty nice looking cutscenes here. Very, very colorful, very nice looking. Let's skip all this. Let's get right down to business. We're going to go with a one-player game here. Now, the controls of this game are pretty interesting. It's very similar to... I want to say that the gameplay is very Robotron or Smash TV. I haven't been her yet. I was the guy last time I played. So so the way you do this is you move around with the D-pad like you would expect. I'm kind of blocking the game there. So you move around with the D-pad once it starts. There we go. And you shoot in your four cardinal directions by pressing these four buttons. So it's kind of dual analog, but not. But it is definitely making use of all the buttons. And then you've got this dodge roll, which is nice, which is mapped to the C button, and then the Z button throws grenades. So I like the little voice work you got going on there, which is pretty nice. Every time you clear a room, they say room clear. I don't know how well that's coming through on my microphone here. But yeah, you collect ammo. I'm going to throw a grenade at these guys. That's pretty exciting. So I grabbed this shotgun. You can get different weapons that do all kinds of different stuff that have finite amounts of ammo to them. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but it's pretty fun so far. I'm not great at it. I've never been great at these kinds of games. I really like them, but I'm not spectacular at it. So this is that's the basics of Xeno Crisis right there. Now I'm very curious. I spent a little bit of time with the Genesis one. Let's see how this plays on Game Boy Advance. So here we are. Let's load this up on my old Game Boy Advance here. Bitmap Bureau, looking good so far. Okay, we got the same language select screen. I'm really curious about is how it's going to control. So, sounds very similar. The visuals, the voices are still there. Start. Obviously, we've got no two-player mode on this. Let's see. Let's do the dude this time. And here we go. It looks pretty much the same. It's pretty nice. Okay, so A button. Okay, the double tap the A button does the dodge roll, and it looks like you start moving, and then if you hold the button, here I'll move this back. So that kind of makes you strafe by holding the button. So you'll start shooting in whichever direction you're shooting. So what do the trigger buttons do? Okay, the right button does the. Oh, that's neat. So the right button throws the grenade, and if you hold the left button, you just kind of spin around. So I guess you can do... Oh! So you can kind of move yourself around while you're... Oh, that's pretty interesting. Well, that's kind of cool. But yeah, you can see it's very much this game. This is absolutely Xeno Crisis, so that's awesome. There it is. Xeno Crisis run on the Game Boy Advance. Very, very cool stuff. Well, there you go. That's the basics of Xeno Crisis. If you thought that looked pretty cool, you can follow the links in our description, and you can pick up a copy for yourself. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here today, please follow, comment, like, subscribe, share, and let us know, what do you think of Xeno Crisis? What platform do you think it looks the most interesting on? What platform are you looking forward to playing it on most? And that's all we've got. Thanks again on behalf of all of us here at Stone Age Gamer. Keep playing games.